Oh, this is for the Czech.
Yeah,
oh, because I speak Czech so well.
Fluently. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. The Karlovy Vary International Film Festival was proud to screen today a newly restored version of Miloš Forman cinematic landmark One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the 1975 classic, which swept the Oscars and earned dozens of other international awards and celebrates its 50th anniversary this year. Michael Douglas, welcome. One of the, woo!
Thank you.
I mean, there is not much more to say. A prolific actor, one of the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest producers, the recipient of the Academy Award for Best Picture, who personally introduced the restored version today at 2 p.m. at the gala screening. Thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure. And thank you, Karlovy Vary, for such a wonderful, warm welcome. It's a pleasure to come back, and particularly with a movie that was such an important part of my career, and to be associated with such a wonderful Czech director as Miloš Forman, who brings back a lot of good memories.
Well, the screening, I think, also honored Karlovy Vary's long sort of standing ties to the Cuckoo's Nest, because Miloš Forman was a loyal supporter of the festival, and he, along with Michael Douglas and Zaent and actor Danny DeVito, also starred in the film, and you guys are all recipients of the festival Crystal Globe for outstanding artistic contribution towards cinema. You received the statue today.
I did, the new one.
Congratulations for the new award.
They upgraded me. I got upgraded from the original Oscar. Thank you.
I have a last information for you. The press conference will take about 40 minutes, so the floor will be soon open to your questions. Let me just ask the obvious question, because I know there was a screening at Cannes, at the Los Angeles Academy, and in Bologna, Italy. What does it mean for you to return here to this special anniversary screening?
Well, this is your 59th festival, and it's been 50 years since Cuckoo's Nest. So the Karlovy Vary Festival was just beginning, really, when we first came here, and I attribute a lot to Miloš. It was a new festival, and Miloš felt it was important for his country and to be here at the festival. And I remember we had a good time. We had a very good time. It's a charming town, and it was a good time. And it's just highly unusual, you know, to be supporting and honoring a movie that was 50 years ago. It was a reminder for me most recently how special that picture was. So it's a treat to come back here to the scene of the crime, where Miloš was brought up, and the country and all that he accomplished, and the good memories that I've had. So it's a treat, and your hospitality and the warmth that the Czech people have showed me is just a reminder of what a special country you live in.
Thank you very much. So, where is the first question regarding, okay, right here, please.
Yeah, okay, hello.
Hi.
Hello, Mr. Douglas. My name is Geza Csakri. I'm from Hungary. And, you know, I was born in 1975, and this special screening gave me a shock that I'm 50 years old today. So, but my question would be that the cinema has changed very much. Now we say that this film is still relevant, but the cinema and the storytelling has changed. So if you would make this movie now, 50 years later, would be the same or would be something totally different? Thank you.
Well, you know, Cuckoo's Nest was based upon a novel, a book by Ken Kesey, so, and which was a classic. I was introduced, my father went to Broadway, and he controlled the rights to the story, and he made a play out of it, and did it in a play in 1962. When I was in college in 1963, 64, Cuckoo's Nest was required, was a part of a class in 20th century American literature. So it was already a new classic. So I don't know if it would have changed dramatically because of time. I think it would have changed if it was in the hands of a different director. I think what was going on politically in the world at that time and what had affected Miloš's life growing up here in the Czech Republic had a lot to do with making it as specific and particular as it was. And of course, the big difference is between celluloid and digital. And that's the biggest change in my lifetime, is between working in celluloid or film and now in digital.
Well, just wanted to say that Paul Zaent, who is here with you, the nephew of Saul Zaent,
Yeah, where is Paul?
was just telling me that at the Cannes screening, there were audience members who were telling him that they thought it was a new movie, that they felt like as it was a new movie.
It was a what?
A new movie.
A new movie. Well, it's timeless, that's for sure.
And he was also the chief architect in reconstructing the movie. Anyway, let's go to the next question. Věra Mišková, is it going to be in Czech, Věra? Okay, can you Sure.
Dobrý den, já bych tady Věra Mišková, Právo a novinky. Já bych se vás ráda poprosila, jestli byste mohl zavzpomínat na Miloše Formana a váš vztah po přeletu nad Kukačím hnízdem.
After the shooting of the film, was the next big memory was the Academy Awards. And we were at the Academy Awards. And we were nominated for nine Academy Awards. And my first order of business was Jack Nicholson, because Jack did not want to come to the Oscars. He had already lost twice as an actor, 5 Easy Pieces, I forget what the other one, as an actor, so he did not want to be there that night. And we fought and begged him, and we got him there. And then we proceeded to lose the first 4 Oscars that we were nominated for. We lost the first 4. And Jack was sitting right in front of me, and he says, I told you so, I told you. See, why I just, what am I, calm down, I told you, it was just, it's going to happen. And then the screenwriters won, and then Miloš won, and I don't know, Peter was here earlier, his son, I remember Miloš in his thank you speech acknowledging his two, Matti and Peter, his two kids. And we went on and won the actress and the actor and then the best picture. And I remember after the award, say, Miloš, it's all downhill from here. It's, our careers is all downhill. And we laughed and we saw each other over the years in New York. I lived in New York and he was living in New York and in Connecticut. always wanted to go to the same restaurant, the Duck Joint. The Duck Joint was a restaurant in New York, and you can imagine Czechs owned it, and we ate there a lot. And then when Amadeus came around, and I remember he called me Mikey D, because that's what Jack Nicholson called me, Mikey D. He said, Mikey D, it is not all downhill, Mikey D. It is not all downhill. And Amadeus had won. And I visited Milos, over the years, up at his place in Connecticut with his wife. He was a reclusive, I guess he was shy in his own way. You wouldn't know it because he was so commanding. But he was a very impressive person and left a very, very big impact on me in the beginning of my career. This was the first picture I produced, and I had not been acting for that long. So he'll be dearly missed, as will several people involved with that production. Ken Kesey is gone. My producing partner, Saul Zaent, is gone, who was so brave, and my father, who was smart enough to find this project in the beginning. So he was, there was also rumors, Milos said it was so true. My father worked for many years for the United States Information Agency. And during the Cold War, the USIA would send American actors behind the Iron Curtain to speak to universities and students. And supposedly, Kirk, my father, spoke here in the Czech Republic to the university where Milos was at, and at that time talked to him about this project, Cuckoo's Nest. And Milos reminded me, and my father reminded me that years later.
We have the latecomer here.
Hey.
Paul is here. Let me also welcome the producer Paul Zaent, nephew of the late Saul Zaent, who co-produced the film. And speaking of Amadeus, Paul was also very much involved in Amadeus and also in Goya's Ghost. Paul, welcome. Okay. So now you have two people to ask questions for. There's one in the first row. Go ahead.
Oh, hi, Michael. Helen Barlow from Australia. I've spoken to you many times. And hi, you were talking about these other people who've passed away. I mean, you had a battle on your hands at one point, and I met you just before that. You looked incredibly young, but you've maintained a hell of a lot of that through your battle and overcome it. I mean, how much was that difficult for you? And I mean, it must have been extremely difficult, but you've really come through. What is it about you that allowed you to really, work so hard afterwards and overcome all these obstacles?
Well, stage 4 cancer is not a holiday. It's not a holiday. But there's not many choices, are there? So I went with the program involving, chemo and radiation, and was fortunate. I can't say I had a couple of friends during that same time who were not so lucky. There was a singing group called Ashford and Simpson. Nick Ashford, he passed away with the same cancer that I did, and Larry Hagman, an actor who was on Dallas and everything. He also had the same cancer, and I remember talking to him because I was sort of had ahead of them to kind of share with them what to expect. So I was fortunate, I guess, with my medical attention, and was lucky to continue working because we were able to handle it with radiation and chemotherapy, because otherwise the surgery would have caused me to not be able to speak, to talk, as well as removing part of your jaw, so we've been limiting as an actor. So I was happy about that, made a recovery. As far as, yeah, you're right. I've been a very busy career. I have not worked since 2022, purposefully, because I realized I had to stop. I've been working pretty hard for almost 60 years, and I did not want to be one of those people who drop dead on the set. I mean, there are some people who that's all they can do. So I'm very happy with taking the time off. I have no real intentions of going back. I say I'm not retired because if something special came up, I'd go back. But otherwise, I'm quite happy, just like to watch my wife work.
Thank you. If you excuse me, colleagues, I'll just squeeze one quick question to Paul, since we have him here. Paul, you have watched closely your uncle, Saul Zaent's working. What do you think was the unique relationship between Michael Douglas, Miloš Forman, and Saul Zaent? What was the chemistry which made it so successful?
Well, the silent?
No, they hit it.
Hello. First, I apologize for being late, but this was the first time I've watched the film here in the Czech Republic, sitting next to Miloš's family, and I was overcome by emotion. I just had to compose myself. Wow. What a powerful movie. I mean, I'm probably biased, but I think Miloš Forman is one of the best directors in the history of cinema. And you could see that they shared the same vision. My Uncle Saul and Michael and Miloš, when they made this film, when Michael explained earlier on stage how Miloš went through the script one page after another, a script that Saul and Michael already shared the vision for. I mean, that's what made that relationship special, and that they trusted each other. You must trust the people you are making a film with.
Thank you very much. So you watched the whole movie. You watched the whole. You
oh
watched
yeah,
the whole movie.
yes.
In the at the Grand Hall at the
for the 5th time in 5 weeks. Yes.
Okay, there are 2 questions in the 3rd row, I believe. You guys go ahead.
Michael, if we put these on, it'll be simultaneous translation.
Yeah, but this is going to be in English, I believe, right?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm not journalist. I'm a movie fan, just movie fan.
That's okay.
If I can ask a
How did you get in here?
You are still welcome.
So let me have a question, maybe more general about our lives. The movie which you produced, Cuckoo's Nest, is about the conflict between individual with free-minded person and the establishment which is really strict. And I see some parallel, some similarity between this movie and current situation in the United States. I don't live in the US, but my question, please let me have a question to you. What are your feelings? What are your thoughts about the current, what is happening in the US?
Well, let's just say I think our president's name has been mentioned enough in the short time that he's been president, and I look at it generally as the fact of how precious democracy is, how vulnerable it is, and how it always has to be protected, and we have to be reminded. And right now, our country is flirting with autocracy, as some other democracies in this world. I know a lady from Hungary was just speaking, and there are other places, other countries in the world. And I hope that the fact of what we're struggling with right now is a reminder for all of the hard work that the Czechs did in terms of, gaining their freedom and their independence and recognizing what's going on. But you always, democracy is not to be taken for granted. And I think it reminds us that we all need to make our efforts. It's not the job of somebody else. And of course, the disappointing thing is politics now seem to be for profit. Money has entered democracy in a way that, not just in our country, but in others, as a way, as a profit center. People are going into politics now to make money. And we maintained an idealism in the US, which does not exist now. So it remains to be seen. Paul spoke about it very well before the beginning of the film introduction. But I prefer really not to go into too much any more detail. The news speaks for itself. I myself am worried. I'm nervous. And I just think it's all of our responsibilities, not for somebody else to look out for us, but for us to each look out for ourselves.
Thank you. There was the next question somewhere there. Yeah, the gentleman in the white shirt.
Hi there. I'm a movie lover and a journalist. I'm George from the Hollywood Reporter in London. And I wanted to ask you, in Hollywood there have been all these remakes of movies, and it's lovely to see that you guys basically just modernized and brought up to date this wonderful picture. But I was curious, were there ever offers to get the rights to remake this movie, or did you ever get calls to say, hey, help us do this again in a different way, in a new way?
I think that's a question for Paul to answer, since fantasy really controls a lot of the rights.
Over the last 50 years, there's been hundreds of calls from studios, directors, producers who want to remake the movie, and we would never allow it to be remade if they were just going to do it as Milos made it. I mean, it would be a dishonor to Milos. Now, and I don't know if Michael's up to date on this, we just made an arrangement with Ken Kesey's family to possibly do a television series, but it's based on the book, and the book was told through the eyes of Chief Brondon. So that's the way the television series would be, through his eyes. At the end of the first year, the McMurphy, the Jack Nicholson character, would die, and then the second year would be what happens to the chief after he escapes. So that I'm okay with, but never a remake of the movie.
Now, I just want to say, Paul, good luck on casting. It was not easy. It was not an easy finding the big chief. Matter of fact, a brief story on. So we were casting, and it was down. It was down to, we were going back and forth between New York and Los Angeles with casting the actors. And one of the trips back to New York, I was sitting next to a gentleman, and his name was Mel Lyman, and he had a used car dealership in Oregon, and his father was an Indian agent, and he sold a lot of cars to Indians, but he was also a rodeo announcer, and he was going back to New York to Madison Square Garden to announce a rodeo. Anyway, I was talking to him, and I said, listen, if you ever find we're looking for an Indian for this picture, he's got to be a big guy and all that. I said, okay. 6 months later, I'm in my office in Los Angeles, and my secretary says, there's a gentleman named Mel Lyman on the phone. Mel Lyman, you have him, oh, yeah. Michael, yeah, hi, Mel Lyman here. Michael, man, an Indian walked into the car dealership the other day. He was the biggest son of a bitch I ever seen. This guy was big. And so he told us about Will Sampson. So we were going up to Oregon to audition Dr. Brooks, who was the superintendent of the hospital, who ended up playing the doctor in the movie. And so we said, well, look, we're going up to Oregon. Why don't we see if we can meet Will Sampson, who was a forest fire ranger in Oregon. He will fly down to Oregon, in Washington. He'll fly down to Oregon, and we'll meet him at the airport, see if he works, and we go out. So we all arrived at the gate before he arrived, and Jack was there, and Milos, and myself, and Saul, and the people were coming off the airplane, and all of a sudden, Will came off, and with his cowboy hat on and his cowboy boots, he was close to 7 feet tall. And Jack went, oh my God, it's the chief, it's the chief. He said, oh, he's perfect, I can't believe it. And then he said, okay, can he talk, can he talk? He said, wait a minute, he doesn't have to talk. He doesn't have to talk. So we all just could not believe we finally found our character. It was incredible. So originally, he was going to turn around and go back down, but we took him with us down to Eugene, Oregon, or the hospital. We were in a little small private plane, little 2-engine propeller plane, very small. And it was, now the chief, there was not enough room, so Will Sampson sat in the seat next to the pilot, and Jack sat on his lap. I'll never forget, he sat in his lap and ran around and said, it's the chief, I can't believe it. And went down there, and it was a great trip because we also found that Dr. Brooks, the superintendent of the hospital, was perfect to play the doctor in our movie. And every time you see, you forget how good he is. That first interview sequence that they have together is fantastic.
I just wanted to point out quickly that you were only 29 years old when you actually decided to produce the movie, which was a very kind of bold decision. Can you tell us a little bit about, after the movie was finally finished, what was the history? Because nobody really wanted to distribute it back then, right?
Right. Well, I was doing a television series called The Streets of San Francisco, which was filming in San Francisco. And I started working with Saul when I first began the series about 4 years before the actual movie started. And because Saul's offices, Fantasy, were in Berkeley, California, which was very close, I was able to keep up with both. And so I did this series for 4 years, 104 hours of television, and I learned a lot about producing. I learned a lot because, a television 52-minute movie is made in 7 days. It has an individual director, and I did 104 of them. So all of a sudden, you're shocked at how much you've learned. So anyway, I left the series. I asked him if I could leave the series in my 5th season. And everybody said, you're crazy. It was a successful show. You're going to leave a successful show to go produce a movie. But they knew how much I wanted to do it, so both Carl Malden, my co-star, and the actor and the producer agreed to let me to go and do that. Okay, so the movie was a phenomenal success. We won all those Oscars. I was now with Saul, a Academy Award-winning producer, but as an actor, I was still a television actor. And in those days, much more so now than streaming, television and film were on separate rails. You did not overlap. The only cases I could think of for me, before me, were Clint Eastwood and Steve McQueen, both who had done television series and then gone into films. But other than that, so basically I had set up shop now as a producer, because I won an Oscar, so it was a studio, but most of the studios would not hire me as an actor. So a couple of my first movies as a producer, I'm thinking of a movie called Starman, which Jeff Bridges did. I would have liked to have done it, but the studio would not approve me as an actor. So it took a little while. It was a little odd. China Syndrome happened, and Romancing the Stone, and then things began to go on.
Thank you. Okay, next questions. There, the gentleman in the white hat, please.
Hello. Thank you very much. Jonáš Zbořil, Seznam Zprávy. My question is on the condition of Hollywood nowadays. Would it be possible for such movies as One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest to happen again, or is the industry really very different?
Without acknowledging that the old days were always better, but I was always, when I look at what the other nominations for Best Picture were in 1975, besides Cuckoo's Nest, the other nominations were Dog Day Afternoon, Jaws, Barry Lyndon by Stanley Kubrick, and Nashville by Robert Altman. So I ask you, in the last 20 years, have there been anywhere near that kind of number of quality movies that were there? So we were really blessed by Saul and Saul's ability to finance this picture independently. He was a gambler. He was a shy guy, liked to shoot pool, liked to gamble, and a voracious reader. And again, one of the things I don't think people remember about Saul is Saul won the Oscar for Best Movie 3 times. He won it for Cuckoo's Nest, Amadeus in the 80s, and then The English Patient in the 90s. But he was such a humble man, he never promoted himself. But I think people should acknowledge and give him the credit. It was well-deserved.
Paul?
I mean, I agree with Michael, and I use the same example about the movies that were nominated in 1975. I mean, when the Academy decided to increase the number of Best Picture nominations from 5 to 10, I said, wait a second, look at the past few years. They were hard to find 5 movies that should have been nominated, and now they have 10. Yet, of course, they only have 5 Best Directors, so who directed those other 5 movies? But to your point, would it be financed today? I mean, you have to remember, Kirk and Michael themselves tried for almost a decade to get the movie financed by Hollywood, and they would not touch it. And Saul and Michael also together tried to get it financed, and Hollywood rejected it. But as Michael pointed out, not only was Saul a gambler, but he came from a gambling family, and my father, Bernie, and my uncle, Sammy, were both bookies or worked for bookies, and were investors, had loaned Saul the money to buy his record company. And between them and a couple of other partners, they had just enough cash to make the movie after the studios had turned down financing. So the movie was completely independently financed.
The other thing that was amazing is that Fantasy was predominantly a record company then, but also movies. But they had their sound recording studios, everything in Berkeley, California. So we did all the post-production in Berkeley again, and the picture that we brought down to get a distributor in Hollywood, the film that we brought down is the exact same movie. Everything, the music was done, the picture was done. It was the exact same movie that got nominated for 9 Academy Awards, and every studio turned it down. Even after we delivered the picture, now I'm sure Saul was negotiating a good deal, but still it was amazing that they could not see beyond. So it was a very fortunate situation.
Finally, United Artists was taking the risk to distribute it.
Thank you. The miss in the 4th row, Monica?
Monika Zavřelová, iDnes.cz. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you very much for being here with us. It's a great honor. I would like to ask about the mental health perspective of the movie, because nowadays it is a really big topic. I think globally, there has been even like academic papers about how cuckoo's nest affected perception of mental health worldwide. But maybe I would like to ask a little bit more how it challenged your view on the topic and maybe even influenced you personally when it comes to, you know, approaching your own mental health. Thank you.
Well, I have a very personal experience with it. My mother suffered from depression from 1972 to 2004. And in 2004, she tried to commit suicide. And she was stopped before she jumped off her building and taken to a hospital. And the doctors, after checking with all the doctors she had seen for 32 years, said, look, she's a danger to herself. You have two choices. You could institutionalize her for the rest of her life, or you could try electroconvulsive therapy. And it's not like it was shown in that movie, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, at that point, my sister and I started laughing. And the doctor said it's not funny. So we had to explain to him why we were laughing. And they said, look, back then, it was called electric shock therapy. Now, the electricity that they use, the jolt, is a lot less electricity. They're giving numbing drugs before, and it's a lot safer. We still don't know why it works, but it does work, and the worse your depression is, the better chances of working. And so my mother, we elected that, of course, and after a few treatments, all of a sudden, her depression was gone, and for 15 more years, she was free of depression. It came back again in 2019. She went under the electroconvulsive therapy again, boom, and she was fine for the rest of her life. So, of course, I'm a big proponent of this, and a lot of times we get calls from documentaries or people writing a book and they want to do something with Cuckoo's Nest. And if they're against it, I won't allow them to use it. Because I see firsthand how well it worked.
We, in a different administration in our country, one of our presidents decided to eliminate psychiatric hospitals in the country. And ultimately then, many people with mental health, if they create issue, were put into prisons. And it really, really was a terrible lasting effect. And we've continually drifted away from the ability of having psychiatric hospitals specifically for mental patients, you know, rather than everything else. So that was always been a burden, and which was part of what Cuckoo's Nest about was because R.P. McMurphy was really a small-time criminal who decided, okay, I'll pretend I'm crazy and be able to get into this hospital. It'll be easier than in prison. But the movie had a big effect when it came out. For instance, I know in the state of Florida at that time, you could be arrested simply for showing erratic behavior. If you were showing erratic behavior, that was enough to arrest you. And so people began to understand a little more about this whole process. But it's a complicated issue, and you would imagine with all the other success that we're having in artificial intelligence, how little we know about our own mental health or our own brains at this point.
Thank you. Okay, there's a gentleman right here sitting. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Michael Douglas. My name is Vid Hassan. I am from server Praha Inn. I would like to ask you one question. And first of all, I want to say you are my favorite movie actor, #1.
You're his favorite actor,
Oh,
number one.
You've been in a lot of trailers, just for example, Chinese Syndrome, Basic Instinct, War of Roses, Falling Down, The Game, Wall Street. I would like to know what role is closest to the real Michael Douglas?
So would I. So would I. I don't know that. I mean, it's a hard question to ask. I went through a period of time as an actor. Someone early to me said, the camera can tell when you're lying. Ooh, the camera, they can tell when you're lying. So earlier in my career, I was like a method actor, trying to always get a sense of reality and this and that, just struggling. And it was painful acting. It was exhausting, and it was really hard and tough. And then I came to Fatal Attraction, remember. So, okay, I'm going to study the character. Who's the character? All right. It's a lawyer in New York. Okay, I could be a lawyer in New York. Okay, he's an adulterer. It's possible, it's possible. And then I started realizing, well, wait a minute, I could be this character. I could. And then the realization came to me, what are we talking about? Acting is lying. It's all about lying. All I'm is here to persuade you to believe that what I'm saying is the truth. And that totally freed me up then and made it much more enjoyable to play, because you realize you can do just about anything the part cared for. I think maybe what separates me from most actors is being a producer. And as such, I really spend much more attention on the story and the script rather than my part. I was able to learn that at an early age. When I first started, I worked at a summer theater, a national playwrights conference where I was working on new material, new theater material, and the actors were just, it could be anybody, because we all were filling in, just playing roles in these plays. And I saw, this is what it's all about. As an actor, if I don't play the part, there's 20 other people who can play the part, but it's the material. And so my career has really been based upon good material. Sometimes I have a good part. Sometimes Sharon Stone has a good part. And so I didn't worry about that so much. I mean, the odd part, which I was not aware until fairly recently, is all my, I don't know, I've done about almost 70 movies. They're all contemporary. Every picture I've done except for one has been contemporary. So I think I've just been immersed in what are our contemporary dilemmas, what male problems exist a lot.
But we all very much enjoyed in this country the Kominsky method.
Yeah.
It was
was
really,
it
yeah,
Okay,
it was
good.
really our favorite show.
That's nice to hear. So the humor translates.
Definitely.
Okay.
Anyway, we have last 5 minutes, so just let's do some questions in the third, fourth row. There was a lot of hands. Yeah, the lady here.
Mr. Eggle-Simpson, I'm happy that we have the chance to meet you. My name is Carolina, Austrian Broadcast, and we all the time we were talking about the past, but I would like to about your future projects. Maybe can you share some secrets with us for now?
I'm an open book. I'm not working. I'm not pursuing work. My golf game is getting better. I have no plans to share with you. I have one little independent movie that I'm trying to get a good script out of, but that's about it. And I'm leaving really now. It's true, Catherine's 25 years younger than I am. She's very busy right now, and I think in the spirit of maintaining a good marriage, I'm happy to play the wife, you know.
Oh. That's very nice. And Paul?
I'm working on a small independent film now that's based on an off-Broadway play called Backyard Desert, which is about 4 U.S. border agents in Arizona and how interacting with a dying Mexican immigrant trying to cross the border, they find their humanity and realize that these are people that are fleeing terrible situations and they deserve to be respected, not treated, not thrown into concentration camps in the Everglades. We're halfway through with the budget and hope to be able to film it in October. Also have the rights to a book, Provence 1970, where over the Christmas holidays in 1970, James Beard, Julia Child, a bunch of other world-famous chefs and food writers got together and were just discussing quality of cooking and nutrition, another small movie. And then there's the TV series on Cuckoo's Nest, and also we have a beautiful screenplay for a TV series on The English Patient, but based a lot on what was in the book that wasn't in the movie. And of course, the script is so beautiful that it's too expensive for the streamers, so we're going to do a rewrite on it now. And it was funny, Michael Ondaatje chose the woman to write the screenplay for TV.
Okay, the gentleman right here.
A question for Michael Douglas. So did you ever think in this legendary journey and career to disappear in front of the camera and became a director?
No, well, I directed a couple of the Streets of San Francisco episodes. And then once the producing happened, and even when I had situations where if I had the final cut of a film, I always would share it with the director because always I never felt frustrated that, you know, I wasn't understood. But I guess I also have to say, the thing about actors, I mean, one of the things that I learned seeing Cuckoo's Nest and with Jack, and one of Jack Nicholson's magic, is Jack is literally more free in front of a camera than he is off camera.
In the real
He allows a camera as an excuse for him to expose himself. And it's a wonderful, wonderful talent that he has.
Are you still in contact with him?
I am, yes, I'm in contact with Jack. He's 88 now, he's fine, he's in good health, a bit of a hermit. It's funny, he lived next door to Marlon Brando, and Marlon was another generation who kind of did the same thing, kind of just became a recluse. He's in good shape, but he just chooses, you go to see him, you got to go up there to see him, and that. There was one, he lives someplace very isolated, and but somehow a paparazzi got a photograph once of him outside on his balcony, and it was a bad morning photograph with Jack with his hair all over, and I must say he looked pretty crazy. So, so his daughter Jennifer, and there was a lot of concerns and all that, said, "Dad, I think you better." So as you know, he loves basketball games and always used to go to the basketball games. So about the next day after that photograph came out, Jack was down at the basketball game with the sunglasses on in the first row, sitting there just saying, "I'm fine. There's no problem. I'm right here." So he's doing well.
Gentlemen, when are you coming next? When are you coming next? When is the next time you are coming to the Czech Republic?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I go skiing, huh? we have good skiing, no?
Sorry, Paul wanted to say something.
Well, 3 weeks ago, we had a screening of Cuckoo's Nest in Los Angeles at the Academy, and we were shocked when Jack's daughter called us and said he would like to attend.
Wow.
But unfortunately, that afternoon, he didn't feel well. The rest of his family came, but he had planned on attending.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing the movie with us. Because this was the last screening in a row.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.